Had to put the 47 away, wrapped up, because a friend of mine has got a truck that I painted a few years ago, and he got some hail damage. So we got a steel hood. The only damage on the truck is on this fender, the hood, and the roof, and a little spot back here on the bed. I don't know if you can see this right here. I did a paint match bedliner a few years ago also. Painted the whole thing silver on the bottom. And we put a little bit of a micro flake in there. He wanted a red metallic, so that was my creation of a micro flake, or a red metallic. So what I got in this box here is the grill. To get rid of that one, we're gonna paint match to the red, and then he's gonna sell the truck. Back when I was young, Lund made a lot of stuff, and I'm pretty sure this is a Lund product, but I'm gonna open it up and find out. I was thinking that I would have to reuse this out of that grill, but I guess not. It's actually pretty nice. So at the end of the day, I'm going to gather all these up and just reuse them. You can reinstall these pins, and it'll open that back up again. So instead of, I do stock new ones, but these are brand new, so I'll just reuse them. So what I have here is a dent in the top of the bed rail, and it pushed and made a high spot here in the paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a stud in here. I got a dolly. I put some tape on the dolly, and when you put this stud in here, you want to take advantage of the heat that it pushes through the metal. So after I get it hot, I'll put this dolly here, and I'll hit this dolly with a dead blow, hopefully push that in a little bit, and then I'll pull this up. So I got lucky with that dent. The high spot dropped in and the dent pulled out. I'll be able to clean it up. Won't have to repaint this area. So what I got going on here is I flat blocked this clear coat with a 600 grit, and then I'll come back and smooth it out some more until I'm able to polish it and definitely not have to repaint this area. Also, this process here is going to be done on each one of these dents to get it flat, and then I'll sand and skim coat this hood, sand it, and prime it. It'll be ready for paint. So I had several major hail dents in the hood, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's still a couple small ones left, but these copper studs work really good. A stud gun's cheap. You can get it at Harbor Freight. Weld a stud in the middle of that dent, pulls it out. Sometimes they come out nice and clean. Sometimes you got to do them twice. This one, it was just as deep as the rest, but for some reason it didn't pull straight. It pulled crooked. This one came out good. Got a little low spot still. Same with that one. This one's really good, nice and flat now. I started doing bed liners a few years ago. There's a lot of trucks in my area, so a lot of people ask me if, you know, if I do a paint job, if I'd go ahead and do the bed liner also. Well, I did this bed liner a few years ago actually, and we paint matched it. But anyways, I wanted to tell you how I get a paint or a line on to sand and get it ready. I use the 3M vinyl. You don't have to use 3M, but I would recommend using the vinyl because it comes off clean, and it'll be the last piece of tape that you pull to reveal your line. So what I do is, since I'm changing the color of this bed liner, we're going over it with black. I'm going to go ahead and drop my line down a little bit, but I got to sand this area, and you want to use the most coarse grit that you can. And it doesn't matter, because you're going to put this bed liner on it, and it's thick and it's textured, so you won't see any sand scratches. So if you can get away with like a 40 or even a 36, I'm using a 60, but it doesn't matter. But it does have to be deep scratches. You can't do this with like a 220. It's got to be at least a 60 at least. So I went ahead and I drew my line all the way around the truck with the 3M. I got a nice straight line all the way down. Then I went ahead and I put some masking tape over that. And then I covered my blue tape up with some black electrical tape. It doesn't have to be black, it doesn't have to be electrical, but it should be vinyl. And I put it right up against the blue. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand that all the way up to that black tape, and then I'll pull the black tape off and it'll be ready to bedline. So I just got this side done. I had my black tape up against my blue. I got it sanded all the way down to the blue and pulled the black tape off. So now I've got my reveal tape lines ready. The reason I put the masking tape here is because I'm going to put another piece and some plastic, some painter's plastic, and I'm going to tape that to the masking tape, which will protect the whole truck when it comes time to do the bed liner. So you get your paper right up against there and it'll ride there. You don't have to worry about scoring your blue tape underneath, because you got your black tape, and it provides a lip also for your paper to ride on, if you will. So this formula works pretty well. As you can see, this bed liner's been on here for 3 years and it hasn't even chipped. Also, when you're setting up for a bed liner, I keep the tailgate on and I match the lines to go all the way around. And then I'll remove the tailgate to spray it separately. That way you get inside the jambs and inside the jamb of the bed itself. But I've got the body sanded up to my blue line, my blue tape line, and I've got the bed liner sanded. Common sense would tell you that if you sand this, you're just going to sand the top side of the texture So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna also wire wheel the texture, the whole bed, which I've already got most of it done, but all the jams and stuff I still have to wire wheel those. That way I can sand down inside the texture, see where it's still shiny. So we got to rough that up, or else the fresh bed liner is not going to stick to the old bed liner. And the purpose of that yellow masking tape there, so sealing off this back wall here in the window, I like to drop that 36-inch, or excuse me, 18-inch paper down behind the bed. So that paper actually comes down behind the bed right here, and that'll stop any of this overspray from getting on the cab itself. Unless you're pulling the bed off, you got to do it like this. Got the dents pulled, got some paint on the Dodge, got the paint matched pretty good. The trick with this paint is I made it. I made the paint, I made the colors. So my friend, he wanted a metal flake in his paint, and I kind of talked him out of it because this just isn't the type of truck you put metal flake on. But anyways, I did go ahead and I put a micro flake in some candy, and I created the red metallic that you see. So it's real subtle. It is just a nice red metallic. I had to match that, and I did a pretty good job matching it. I checked the work already. I had to blend it. I blended the area in the fender into the door and into the hood, and then also in the roof. But that's really not why I was making this video. I was making this video about the bed liner. So I will be focusing on that bed liner more than this paint. I did get the grill paint matched. It turned out good. So I think that'll change the whole look of the truck. With the black bed liner, should look pretty good. So getting back to the truck here, I've got the truck ready and prepped to be bed lined. Now keep in mind, I'm going over top of another bed liner, but I could do this with this bed liner because it's urethane and it's hard. So I got two paint cabinets that I keep all my stuff in, and one of these paint cabinets is full of a product, and that's Speedokote. These guys have been really good to me, especially my sales rep Brad. What I'm going to be using today is the TREX Speedokote bed liner. This is black. They have a system that you can use, and that's tintable, and that's how I was able to get this one red. But this particular bed liner is urethane, and it's also UV resistant. And you can take their tintable bed liner and you can make it whatever color you're working on, or whatever color you want. You can tint that bed liner and you'll get a nice even matched color. I've successfully done it on 3 different colors, and it was perfectly matched. Also, I've taken the Speedokote TREX bed liner and I've used it on the bottoms of a Jeep, and I used it on the inside of a Jeep. How you set up your gun is the consistency and the texture that you'll get with this bed liner. So you have to play around with it a little bit, but definitely do that. Do some spray outs on some cardboard or something first before you actually put it down on the bed. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shoot this bed with the TREX black over top of the TREX red. And I'll tell you what, it's going to come out nice. So one of the things that I fell in love with was the sandability of Speedokote's primer. Their priming systems are pretty awesome. And also their color blender, which is equivalent to me to a DBC 500. And their color blender can be used as a color blender or as a lockdown clear, as a fast cut-in clear. But I've also used it as a carrier for micro flakes, jumbo. I've actually used it for jumbo flakes, and it works out awesome. The only one thing that you got to be careful about is it mixes 1-to-1 color blender and urethane reducer. So you don't want to put this directly over top of any gold leaf. I found out that it causes the gold leaf to bubble, so you need to be careful with that. And what that is from the reducer. I've mixed the color blender 1 to 0.5 to give it a little thicker consistency, and it actually held my jumbo flakes in place and suspended them perfectly. And getting back to their primers, this is sandable primer. I've used this a lot. I would like to see them come out with a buff color, because I can see that easier. My eyeballs ain't so good anymore. But they have another priming system that is a 2K primer, and you can mix it as a sandable primer, or you can also mix it to use as a sealer. And that's a touchy subject, sealers. The reason why it's a touchy subject is because I'm using their Speedokote sealer, which is a primer, on the 47. I'm not using it as a sealer. I'm using it as a color sealer. I'm sealing off all my colors, all my different colors, like the colors you get from sanding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up Speedokote's primer, and I'm going to seal this whole truck. Once all the bodywork's done, I'm going to seal that color to make it all uniform. So that's a big misconception among people, is the term sealer and primer. Everyone thinks that you have to prime and then you have to seal. But you don't have to prime and seal. If you prime right and you prep right and you sand correctly, you won't need to use a sealer. But I will be using Speedokote primer as a sealer to seal the color and make the color all one uniform color before paint. Also, when you're doing these bedliners, you pretty much got to pick and choose where you're going to draw your lines for your bedliner to end and your door jamb to stay the same. I'm going to go ahead and choose this line here, and it's pretty much the same line I chose before. They will overlap a little bit. With the tailgate closed, you won't be able to see any red textured bedliner down in there. used some Speedokote Jet Black. It's a 2-stage paint with an activator. I sprayed the bed first with that to cover any areas up underneath the bed rail that you might miss with the bed liner. You don't want to see red showing through your bed liner. So if you miss any areas, the black's going to seal it up. Like I said, that bed liner is urethane based, so it will go right over top of any other urethane. Mixing the bed liner, you want 8 ounces of activator. You pour it right in the bottle, shake it up. Just check out Speedokote.com. They sell all kinds of stuff, including mixing materials, pearls, paints, primers, clear coats. It's a good place. Talk to Brad. Here we go. Gonna bed line. So I got my activator inside my bottle, and I did use a little bit of reducer, because you can use a urethane reducer to thin it out a little bit. It helps come out of the gun a little bit better. Shake this for 2 to 3 minutes. And then you spray it at 60 to 80 psi. That is an opinion. You can manipulate your psi to get a different texture. You can manipulate your psi and your nozzle on your gun to get even a different texture, so you have to play around with it. Now the gun goes right on the bottle, air right to the gun, and start spraying. It's one pass. Also, when you're spraying this, it is a urethane and it's kind of harsh, so you got to wear respiratory protection. So with that particular gun that I'm using, I actually adjusted the nozzle and set my air pressure to 25. So I'm going to let that set up for about 10 minutes. So I got it, my coverage coat's down. I'm going to let that set up for about 10 minutes. You can see you got some modeling going on, wet and dry spots. I was looking for coverage. It took 2 bottles to put that texture across this whole bed, including the tailgate. So I still have 3 bottles left. And with those 3 bottles, I'll probably end up using 1, maybe 2 more to fine-tune my texture and the look, and the sheen is very important on these. I like to see a nice satiny looking sheen, and I think that this texture is an opinion. I like the fine texture. Some people like it bigger, thicker texture. But we'll get it done, and I'll show you the end result. So with each coat, I'm pulling my distance back a little further each time. So the gun doesn't quite reach to the bottom of these. So what I've been doing is every time I'm done with the bottle, I'll just pour the rest into another bottle. And after 3 or 4 bottles, you'll end up with almost a half a bottle to spray. If you need touch-ups, or you just want a different sheen, or you're looking for a different texture. But there's a half a bottle right there. Shit's hard to do one-handed. You always want to peel your tape back onto itself. It creates a knife edge and it cuts itself through. So we'll take off the reveal tape now. Again, pulling itself back onto itself. Boom.
Fuck, I think I'm just gonna be too shiny.
It looks good. Got my broski, cutting and buffing.